Welcome to episode 12 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure podcast. I'm here with my friend Craig.
G'day, guys.
And we're calling this episode What's in the Pack. We're going to delve into everything that we pack on an adventure. Craig, I hope you have clean underwear in that pack because we are going to go through everything tonight.
Always.
Very good. Play the tunes. G'day guys, and welcome to another podcast. I am going to go straight into thanking our sponsors, Rios Gear, for our waterproof. They're not waterproof, they are waterproof. They're also floating and they're also polarized sunglasses, and I love them. They're fantastic. Thanks also to Topo Maps Plus. It's an app that we use on our phone to pretty much navigate where we're going and to record trails and all that sort of stuff. Also like to thank Bluey Merino. They're suppliers of our base layers. They've just launched their new website, Craig. It's looking fantastic, and there's a bunch of new products on there as well, so I'd encourage you guys to check that out.
Nice.
Last but not least, Caribou.com, suppliers of fantastic backpacks and other outdoor gear. Craig, how are you, mate?
Hey, good. How you doing, Tom?
Good. It feels like it's been forever, and I'm really happy to be here tonight.
Yeah, I've been really excited about this. Good to get back in the studio and have a little bit of a chat.
Yeah, there's been a lot happening too. A lot happening behind the scenes. A lot of good stuff and some interesting stuff as well.
You bet. Yeah, I've been really excited about some upcoming trips we got, getting my gear all sorted, which is really appropriate timing for this little episode we're working on. So
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we delve any further, I just want to do a quick bit of housekeeping. And that is, I just want to say there was a little bit of a glitch on the podcast page where it's a long story, for nerds are going to love it, but I won't go into detail. One of the plugins expired or whatever, and it wasn't displaying all of the show note links. I went back in there this afternoon. I've fixed all of those. So if you haven't heard an episode before, you can go to the podcast page on HikeordieTV.com. And it will list every episode we've done. Click on one of those episodes and you'll go through, and there's a lot of information there about topics that we cover. Why that's so important tonight is we are going to be going through pretty much every piece of gear that we take on an adventure. So that's going to be a place where you can go and reference the brands we're talking about, and just any piece of gear. Sound good?
yeah, I reckon you'll have a bit of work putting this all up for this one.
I'm going to have a lot of work ahead of me. That's a fact. I was thinking about that just before.
Yeah.
All right, that's housekeeping out of the way, mate. What have you been up to?
Look, I might just go back a little bit actually and just remind myself that we never touched base again. We did an episode about adversity is your friend, and I said I was going to do the cold shower challenge, and I did.
Oh, man. you would not believe that. You will not believe that I had a cold shower just before I headed over here. And as I was getting out of the shower, I thought, I wonder if that
That late night promise.
so-and-so, if that so-and-so
Did it?
has ever done it.
Hang on.
And I wonder if I should put him on the spot
Put
tonight.
me on the
So I didn't
spot.
have to. Good
Well,
for you, mate.
Last time I forgot it. I forgot to mention it, but definitely I did 2 weeks no hot showers.
Is
for 2
that
weeks.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not just one or two, mate.
No.
I commend you on that effort because I've put that challenge to a few people and they can't do it for one day.
It was brutal.
Yeah, it's not the funnest thing in the world.
No, it wasn't fun. I can understand the sort of challenge of it. I got the mental fortitude that's required. I kind of get all that, but really, yes, And I can now jump in a cold shower. I sort of know what that's about, but I don't think I'll be doing it much.
Can you tell me if there was any, without putting words in your mouth, was there any, is there any residual feeling from, you have the cold shower, you get out of the cold shower, how did you feel after that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It snaps you to life. It really does have an interesting effect that is a real thing. But,
Yeah, I wanted to check that it wasn't just me.
No, it's not just you.
Because I reckon that somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour, I'm feeling pretty electric and just ready to go, charged up, and yeah, really good.
Yeah. No, I'd never done anything like that. So it was, and yeah, there was some days where I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway.
That's awesome, man. I don't want to sound condescending because as if I thought you would never do it, but I didn't think you would ever do it.
Yeah, that's why I had to mention it.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. I think I should mention if people do not know what we're talking about, I think it might have been episode 10. As Craig mentioned, we did an episode called "Adversity is Your Friend." I happened to mention a book that I was reading. It's not by Wim Hof; it's about Wim Hof, a guy who kind of has put together this theory that jumping in cold water is good for you. I used it to prepare a couple of years ago for when I was shooting a documentary in cold climate. And I swear by it now. But it was interesting, mate. I'm glad you did that. That's cool. Good feedback.
What have you been up to anyway?
Okay. A lot's happened in my running career.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it a career. I had to listen back today to the last episode to remind myself what we talked about.
Yeah.
And so
you'd gone to 10K, right?
I'd just gone to about 11 Ks, which is just over 6 miles. And
tidy.
After that, it was only about 2 weeks after that, I got home one Monday night after work, and I thought, I wonder what it feels like to run a half marathon. So after work on a Monday night, I set out at 7 p.m. into this little trail running area near my house. It was pitch black, and I took a head torch and off I trotted. And I came back, I think, 2 hours, and it was a long time. 2 hours and 34 minutes or something later, I got home. Yeah. And I'd done 21 Ks and I was still alive. You.
That's great, man. That's stepped up a bit.
I know, but it literally, because it's funny, listening back to that last episode was really interesting the way I was talking about it. I said, look, I don't know, I've got to add another 10 kilometers to my game. And I did it, and I did it in one night. But what's crazier is the reason I did that was so that 2 weeks later I could enter a half marathon. So I just wanted to make sure I could go the distance. So 2 weekends later, I went on this night run, 21 kilometer half marathon night run through the mountains, about an hour from where I live, and it was brutal. So brutal, Craig. It was just crazy. I was walking along at points because it was so steep in parts. You know the four-wheel drive tracks? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure if I told you this. The four-wheel drive track where we went down all of these crazy places, and then we found that, let's call it a hidden campsite where we stayed.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah. We ran past that.
Yeah.
We ran past this place that took us ages of driving down ridiculous terrain to find this hidden spot to camp. And we actually jogged past the entrance, and I was like, oh.
So you're just using head torch?
Yeah, just a head torch. And
Was the moon out? Was it a good night?
The moon was out a bit, I have to admit. It definitely was a nice night. There was a period there, and I was talking to somebody else about this. There was a period there where I was running along this slight decline, just a nice gentle slope, very straight, and it was an old four-wheel drive track, and I could see this mountain in the distance, Mount Biawak, because we looped around the back of it, and all the stars were kind of behind it and made a silhouette. And I actually switched my head torch off and probably ran for about nearly 2 minutes just looking at the sky. It's a bit of a remote area, so you don't get light pollution and you just see amazing stars. And I just remember thinking, this is pretty cool. If for nothing else, this 2 minutes, I'm actually enjoying myself. And there was another part where it rained on us for a bit, and I remember just looking up and just letting it rain on my face, and I was just smiling, just thinking, this is what it's all about.
I can imagine you just feeling the pain most of the time, though.
The other times I was saying to myself things like, you stupid idiot, what makes you think that 2 weeks ago you could run 11 kilometres and now you think you can run with these pros with like funny shorts and
I was going to say, what was everyone
singlets and stuff?
What was everyone else doing? Were you keeping
they
up,
weren't.
or were you?
Oh, mate, I finished pretty bad. It took me 3 hours and 18 minutes. Compare that
because of the terrain and stuff.
Because of the terrain.
Geez.
Compare that to what did I say, 2 hours 34.
Oh, that might not have been fun at all.
It was not fun. There was parts where I had to use my hands to climb over
geez.
like stuff, climb up. You couldn't even walk it. It was insane.
So it wasn't a fun run.
I ran past this because I'm really good on the downhill, even with big jumps and stuff. I got no problems with that because I got long legs. But I ran past this couple negotiating their way down, or just as I just heard this lady say to this guy, "Oh my God, this is ridiculous." But yeah, as I said, downhill I'm fine. As soon as I hit the other side, it was something like within the last 5.2 kilometres. So you're already doing this crazy elevation, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then in the last 5.2 kilometres, you drop 200 metres in elevation and then go back up over 200 metres in elevation. That's just in the last 5Ks. That was hectic. I ran over the finish line though. I still had gas in the tank and I thought maybe I should have gone a bit harder, but hey, it's cool. I got a free hat. Well, a free hat that cost me $75 to enter to get. It's good. It's a trucker's cap. I like trucker's caps. And I did it, and then the next one's in June, and it's only 15 kilometres, and I think, well, how easy is that?
You're up for more? What?
Oh, I can't believe it. It's stupid. I said I'd never do it again, and then 2 days later I'm at work Googling the next race. So,
good on you, buddy.
I don't know. It's just good fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think it's just I think it's so easy to measure. It's literally about distance and time. And if you can beat that distance and time in the future, you know you're progressing, right? You can't really do that with a lot of other pastimes, I don't think.
Oh, mate, it's very meditative to do a little bit of long distance
Yeah, it is.
activity, so that even if it's on flat terrain and it is monotonous, there's something just, fantastic about just listening to your thoughts for that period of time.
Just listening to yourself cry while you're running. It's nice.
Actually, that sounded, like you're pretty agitated going up and down, terrain like that. So I wouldn't say that was relaxing or peaceful. But
I'll tell you what, though, we got to this aid station where they had electrolytes and stuff and a bit of food, and I was just shoveling down potato chips and electrolytes and stuff. And then I just said to the person manning the station, I said, "How far to go?" And she said 5.2 Ks. And I went, "Good." And she said, but you've got to get through the dungeon to get to the finish line. And that's what they call that the last bit. And I actually remember the downhill was I had the most fun going down a couple of kilometres. It was full on. Put it this way, I don't think you could drive a vehicle out of there. It was that brutal.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'll take you there one day.
Well, mate, you usually call me when you want to do something stupid, so I'm actually kind of glad you didn't call me on this.
Yeah,
one.
I do usually. I got so much news. Is there anything you'd like to touch on before I keep rambling?
No, buddy. No, go on. Let's.
All right, I got a good one for you.
Yep.
Colorado man, trail runner, chokes mountain lion to death. Did you hear about this?
No.
About 2 weeks ago, this guy's running along this trail, and he hears some pine needles kind of break underfoot, and he spun around, and there was a mountain lion coming at him, and he shouted, did all the right things, put the arms up, and get out of here or whatever, and it didn't take any notice and just launched at him, just like in some Western movie or something, and they fought on the ground. It had his hand. What I'm going to do is put a link to they actually did a live police report kind of thing. So a police officer from the sheriff or whatever from the area introduced him, and he just got up and answered questions for half an hour. But there's a little highlights reel of that goes for, 7 minutes or something. I'll put a link in the show notes because it's actually really interesting. He's just such a nice young guy, just a normal dude out trail running, and he said that he got to a point where he's got this thing latched on his hand, like the tooth is through his hand, so he couldn't get his hand out of its mouth. And then he remembers being conscious enough of what was happening to think, oh, now that I've got the top half of the cat occupied, what I don't want to happen is, because it was facing him, is for the back legs to start, you know how they kick?
Scratching
He didn't
him.
want it to rip his guts out or his, as he put, his nether regions, the softer parts. He didn't want to lose any of that.
The gentle part.
So he actually consciously wrapped his legs around the back of the cat as well, and then he only had one hand free, and he's trying to grab sticks and stab it in the neck just to scare it off, and they're just pine branches, and they're just snapping, and then he gets his hands on a rock, but the rock's kind of too big to wrangle, and so it's not a good size for bashing. It's kind of just it's too big, so he hits this line a couple of times in the head to try and scare it, and then he just realised at that point it was hell-bent on taking him out all the way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not making light of an animal dying here. That's not funny, but I think that he said he got to a point where it was basically fight or flight, and he just knew that if he just laid there, he'd never get up. And somehow he got himself in a position where he was pushing its head away with his foot on its throat, and I think it's still at his hand. Then he kind of explains it way better than me. I mean, he was there. He put his foot across its throat, and it wouldn't let go of his hand, and so he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and eventually it just went limp and its mouth opened, and he didn't know whether it was just unconscious or what, and he took off, ran into another trail runner. They got him back to safety. Police went back out there, and sure enough, it was still there. And so, wow, what an afternoon, man!
With his bare hands.
With his bare hands, incredible.
Jeez.
A lot of respect.
So
for
that
the
was
dude.
like an interview.
Yeah. They talk to him. Well, like I said, the whole thing goes for 35 minutes, but there's a nice little cut down of about 7.5 where he just.
I'll look that up. That sounds good.
Yeah, well, it'll be on the
That's what I'm
show
saying.
notes page.
That's
mate.
what I'm saying. I'll look that up. That sounds good, man.
Yeah, it's good. Another bit of a funny one. Well, that's not funny, is it?
Well, before you go much further, though, did you hear about the dingo attacks on Fraser?
I did not.
This week.
I did not.
Yeah. So a pack of dingoes got a 9-year-old and his mother.
Well, I just rounded him up.
No, like got his face and his arms and everything. Actually, really attacked him bad, and
They both survived.
they both survived.
But they both got kind of rounded up
serious.
together. Like they worked as a pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, serious injuries, but I think they were tourists. They probably potentially didn't quite know how to behave around dingoes.
Yeah, it
on
didn't
Fraser.
kind of, I guess, I think we've told dingo stories before on this podcast, but that kind of, again, making yourself loud and heard and standing up tall and being aggressive. A dingo is, well, we consider them a native Australian dog. Where they came from is not 100% sure, but they think it's from up Asia.
Yeah.
At some point they came down, but they are a beautiful looking animal. They're definitely not anywhere physically near a wolf or a coyote, but they still travel in packs. The real trouble comes when, and it's happened on that island, is when people leave food hanging around. People leave even tents and sleeping bags. They smell humans, they smell things, they go in, they tear the place apart. So yeah, wow, I did not hear about that at all.
Yeah, it was pretty serious this week. And then I think the biggest take-home message is not to run, and apparently that is. But you can imagine trying to tell our kids. I'm just scared now to go there and tell the kids don't run, because it's an instinct possibly to run away from these animals, and then they can pounce on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I could say a lot of things about that. I think that.
Yeah, scary
I'm
stuff.
going to leave that one there.
Yeah.
But don't feed wild animals, and keep an eye on them. They're wild animals.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, that's what I was going to say is don't. I wouldn't let my wife and kids wander off near the edge of the bush or whatever unless I was there. So anyway, I'm not going to criticise other people. I don't know the situation, but yeah, be careful out there, guys.
Totally.
I'll move on to something a bit more lighthearted. 16-year-old Australian Jade Hammerster, not sure how to pronounce the surname. She became the youngest ever person to do what they call the polar hat trick, which is crossing the North Pole, the South Pole, and Greenland. So they do it with this, like a harness, and they drag this thing called a pulk, P-U-L-K, I think. It's like a sled that you kind of close up, and you have all of your stuff in there, your food and tent and everything, and you just walk with trekking poles and just go for it. That's an amazing achievement. What's really funny about that is she was, because she's female, she was I think she did a TED talk and stuff. She was talking about, that girls can do everything and all of that. And, we've spoken about that on the show before. I think that's a great attitude. It's good to see females in the outdoors getting things done. And some guys were jumping on and trolling her and basically saying, "Go make me a sandwich." And that was kind of, in other words, you should be in the kitchen. So they've said, "Go make me a sandwich." And she made a sandwich. So she's at the South Pole. She made a sandwich, and she's got this photo of her with this sandwich right next to the kind of marker of the South Pole. And then I think it was a tweet or something, and she said, "I made you a sandwich now go and ski 6,000 miles and get it yourself.
That's cool.
I thought that was really cool, like sticking it to them. Yeah,
Oh, that's tough.
it's really cool. It is tough, man. It's really tough. Other exciting news for the outdoor industry is, do you remember, did I tell you I went and saw Free Solo, that Alex Honnold film?
Yep.
Not sure if I mentioned it on the podcast. It's an epic film. Get out and see it any way you can.
Yep.
I want to see it again. I probably won't go to a cinema to see it though, because there's too many people with man buns running around, wannabe climbers, getting all excited, little fanboys and stuff. No offense to you climbers out there. Anyway, their film, Free Solo, when I say their film, his mate Jimmy Chin, who's an excellent climber, was running the camera gear up on the wall, and a whole team of people. And Jimmy Chin's wife, Elizabeth Chai Vassarelli, I think her name is pronounced, they won a Oscar, mate, for Best Documentary Feature.
Yeah. I think I heard that. And I'm going to watch it for sure, mate, because it looks like it's awesome, eh?
It's not like it's the first, like every year documentaries win Oscars, but I just think that it's such a niche outdoor pastime. Like something like hiking or even canoeing has a much bigger demographic, much bigger participation.
I saw you went and watched it. You watched it at a small cinema. It wasn't on the big screens.
No, it's not
Australia.
really. It's just doing like film festivals.
Yeah.
I went over to a on-campus university cinema.
Yeah, I think I noticed that.
Yeah.
Because it's on iTunes now. You can buy it.
Oh, is that right?
You can download it right
Yeah,
away.
right.
So.
Well, it's worth it. Geez, I might consider doing that so I can watch it at home.
Yeah. No, it looks good.
Yeah, it's good. But I just think it's good for the industry. I think it's good for everyone. And I was also having a bit of a laugh thinking, if you were, because there was about 4 or 5 other nominees, and I was thinking if you had put all this time in, a couple of years to making a documentary, and then you hear that Alex Honnold and Jimmy Chin just made a documentary about him climbing without ropes up El Capitan, you'd just smack your hand into your forehead and go, oh my God, we're not going to get this Oscar.
Yeah.
Look, it's worth checking out. It doesn't matter that if you don't know anything about climbing, it doesn't matter if you've got no interest in climbing. It's a film about somebody's perseverance and dedication to a sport and mental fortitude and physical capabilities. There's a lot going on. It's much more than climbing, and I'd recommend that everyone go and check it out. We have an equally epic trip coming up to our standards.
Yeah.
If you heard us talk on the last podcast, the documentary that I made 2 years ago, roughly, filmed 2 years ago, sorry. A short version of that's been picked up by the Cradle Mountain Film Festival in a little island called Tasmania off the coast of Australia. And Craig and I had planned to fly down for about 4 days and attend the festival, meet a few people, watch the film, do a little bit of hiking, and then we decided to extend that to tack on a 6-day, roughly, I think we'll probably end up covering about 70, once we do the side trails as well, maybe even 80 kilometres, somewhere between 80 to 100, so just shy of 60 miles over 6 days. And I am really starting to get excited now that it's only about 4 weeks away.
Yeah, perfect. I have been thinking heaps about that trip. It's getting close, mate.
Yeah, and it makes this episode really simple because I have been getting all my gear out anyway and assessing things, moving things around, shuffling things, dropping a few things, replacing some stuff. So we'll get to all of that.
For sure.
I bought some kettlebells last night. Do you know what they are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had my eye on them for a while, and I picked up a second-hand set. So I'm going to get stuck into those and
Oh, nice.
try and incorporate that into some of the other tire flipping and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I will continue running, of course, and I'm interested to see how that manifests itself once I do hit the trail with a heavy pack. I know you said previously that all you did was running, and that you were always stronger than me on the trail when you were doing that.
I don't think I'll be keeping up with you anymore, mate.
As long as it's not, as long as we don't have to go through the dungeon, we'll be fine. Having said that, there is one spot that's very similar.
Jeez.
I'm just kidding. I'm going to make you slightly jealous now, Craig. I feel guilty for saying this, but I purchased something online this afternoon. It's going to be arriving at my house in the next couple of days. It has a number 7 on the side of it.
Oh,
Yes.
I know what this is.
I'm not one to go out and get the best and newest of everything, but I just bought the GoPro 7.
You just made a good decision, mate.
Everything I read, every review I watched, even the ones that were, being really honest and showing the negative. I was running a 3+, so I've hung in there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until the 7 where I thought I could actually justify the jump for so many reasons.
So many.
And it's actually going to cut down on my gear.
Of course it is.
Because I don't need to carry all the waterproof housing and all the different attachments and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm pretty excited about that. It hasn't really sunk in yet. It was literally 4 or 5 hours ago I hit purchase and then...
Yeah, mate. Good move. You have to think very carefully about your gear, and that ticks so many boxes in an upgrade because of what it's able to achieve for such a small package. It's very well put together.
It is. Put it this way, I was very strongly considering the 5. You've got the 5, haven't you?
I've got a 5.
You got a 5. I was very strongly considering that because it had so many advancements. The touch screen on the back. It is waterproof as it stands. I thought, wow, that's a worthy upgrade from where I'm at. Then the 6 came out, and I thought, I'm not really convinced. I'm going to sit back now. But I'm stoked. Can't wait.
Yeah, because I've got the gimbal that I have had good results with.
Yes, exceptional results.
And what I've seen of that 7 does a great job of stabilization. So
it's pretty close.
Yep.
They call it gimbal-like. So gimbal-like results.
Yeah.
It's nowhere. It's not as good as your gimbal, but for not carrying a gimbal and handheld and just getting a few shots on the fly, it's 10 times better than a typical GoPro.
Oh, it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be close. The only thing, if you put on a long stick and raise it and lower it, for instance, it's not going to keep the horizon. It's going to go up and down.
Correct.
Like a gimbal's slightly better for things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be okay for kind of pans. If you're moving to the left and right, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
If you're going to move up and down, you just hold your
just be
extension stick in a different manner and lower it horizontally,
It's a pretty decent package, mate.
Yeah, it's going to be good to have that on board. It means that, excuse me, our footage is going to be a lot closer to each other. You having the 5 and me having the 7.
I think I'll be having a 7 too. So.
I had a feeling it might have that effect. Which is why I apologised in advance. I apologise to you kids for not having dinner on the table for the next 3 weeks.
We still got 3.5 weeks, haven't we?
We still have time. Hey, mate, I was going to move into your favourite segment, which is Books with Tom.
I don't know why that makes me laugh. I think I still imagine you going, Books with Tom.
I'll tell you something funny. I don't know if we got time for this. Do we have time for this? We're just here having a good chat.
Get on with it, mate. Get on
if
with
this
it.
is not your cup of tea, just, I don't know, tell us. That's a good start. Now my computer's being slow. I picked out this, I actually downloaded this royalty-free song because it had flutes in it. And I was laughing my head off because we did speak about...
What have you done, man?
I haven't done anything yet, but I did. Oh, it's not even worth the gag. I'm not even going to do it. It's just another time. Right, let's get back to business. I finished a book called Beyond the Horizon. It's by a guy called Richard Parkes. Now, I picked this thing up for $2 at the, secondhand store, which I do a lot of my books.
It's a bit of a recurring theme there.
It is, yeah, it is. And I mean, I couldn't afford all these books if I wasn't going there. The funny thing is that the area I work in, it's kind of like a rich area, so the books are of exceptional quality, and the topics are awesome as well.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Richard Parkes is apparently this rugby player, so rugby union, from the UK. I can't stand football, no offense. I don't like it. I don't like rugby. I don't know anything about it. I'm not the person to talk to about it. So when I saw that he's this ex-rugby player, I didn't know whether I should grab it, but then I read the back and it was about, he has this injury which ends his football career. I'm not giving anything away here. It's not a spoiler. And so begins this journey of him sitting in this room, his old bedroom at his parents' place, just not knowing what to do next with his life, because he lived and breathed rugby for years and years and he was quite good at it. Played all across Europe and the UK. So I don't even know who this guy is. I'm sure some people would. But it doesn't take anything away from the story because, mate, this guy, he just turns himself into this mountain climbing beast, like absolute unit. And he ended up doing, he called it the 737 challenge. He did all 7 highest peaks in the world in 7 months.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Which is, everyone said you can't do it. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous when you think about, I don't know how much you know about people who prepare for Everest and attack Everest, but basically they train for maybe 2 years, hit Everest, completely deplete themselves, and spend 6 months recovering, just getting their weight back on their body, everything. It's a big undertaking. That's one peak.
Yeah, right.
He did that, and he also did the other 6 below it. And as a warm-up, he went across Antarctica as well. So he's just incredible. It's a cool read. It's a good book. I actually... for a football player, he was really quite charismatic and he wrote well, and I just felt that it was a really good book. Check out the show notes. There's a link to it. You can read a little bit on Google Books. You can read a few of the pages, but it's worth checking out. Maybe
you'll start watching football now.
Yeah, I'm really into football. Okay. I actually thought I'd already mentioned this on an earlier podcast, but I had not completed the book, so I didn't mention it. I haven't spoken about Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. There's 2 books last year that I will not use the term lightly. There's 2 books that changed my life. One of those, you know what Craig's doing right now? I just said this book has changed my life. I'm talking about something so unbelievably profound. He's rolled backwards away from the microphone and got a beer.
Sorry about my body language, man.
He's cracking. Listen.
Right. Oh,
there.
It didn't quite work.
bit of an anticlimax.
Books with Tom is a chance for me to get a drink.
He just got a beer when I was saying there's 2 books that actually changed my life.
I was listening.
I know you were listening, but I thought if someone said that to me, I'd say, stop everything, tell me more.
This is my chance to run away.
One was the book I mentioned just before, and I go into a fair bit of detail on the episode called Make Friends with Adversity. So I'm not going to go into that again. This one's called Born to Run. It is another book I got at the same place. I picked it up. It said it was $2, and I thought, I hate running. That's not even worth $2. I just ran a half marathon a couple of weeks ago, right?
Because of the book?
It's because of the book, I'll be honest.
Oh, right.
The funny thing about this book is it's not just about running. It's about so many things. It's about this Tarahumara tribe in the valleys of Mexico that are renowned for just running everywhere. They hid away when the Spanish came and tried to kill everybody. They basically ran into this valley, the Copper Canyons, and just hid there for generations, and they still live there in these kind of holes in the side of cliffs and stuff, and they hold these big runs where all the communities get together and they'll run 100 miles or 200 miles or something over a couple of days and just see who wins. Like, it's kind of a status thing, but there's no prizes. There's just they just get together and drink this fermented corn beer at the end of it, and it's really interesting, mate. I've actually bought another 2 copies to give to other people to start reading it, and I've lent mine to a friend of mine, and he just came back and said, I got to get my own copy. This is ridiculous. And he started recommending it to people.
Where's my copy?
Yeah.
Is it because I don't read?
Well, you've been pretty clear about that.
I thought it might be a Bruce Springsteen.
I'm going to read the whole thing in an audiobook form and then just give it to you.
That's good. That's good.
It's fantastic. It covers so many more things that there's all this intertwined storyline about the human foot, and because these guys run in sandals.
Really?
Yeah, and they beat ultra marathon runners who run in all the shoes and have massage therapists with them and coaches and all this, and these guys run in skirts. It's kind of like a wraparound sarong thing and sandals, and just run and run and run, and their support crew hands them little like fajitas with beans in them.
Perfect.
And they just grab a fajita or burrito or whatever and keep running and eat it, and then just keep. It's just bizarre. The most bizarre thing ever. It's an incredible story by a guy who he's a journalist, and he's a little bit into running, and then he just starts chasing down these people and researching these ultra marathons around the world, and talking to people. Now the big thing is there's 2 things that got me to start running further and more frequently. One was they spoke about the running style and how these guys run, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm like these guys. All I'm saying is ever since I've run, my whole life people have told me that I don't run correctly because I don't heel strike. So I don't put my heel down and then my foot. I actually run onto the side of my foot, and the ball, my heel basically never touches the ground. And then this book, after all these years of thinking I'm not a good runner, this book says that basically if you take away the shoe, that's how the human foot should hit the ground, because it's got its own inbuilt suspension system through your Achilles tendon and 26 bones, that it's all meant to work together to compensate for the weight hitting the ground. And that running shoes have only been around for about 60 years. And what they're actually doing is they're putting so much padding in that it makes you run differently. And one of the two biggest problems that happen with runners is because they heel strike so hard, they do damage to their knees. And then because they do such long strides, it's hard to explain, but your back leg at the front of your ankle, they have problems there as well. That's another big one. And then shin splints because you're smashing down with all this force. So basically what they're saying is the less protection you have, you actually change your running style and you run safer for your body and you can run longer. So this Tamamara tribe have guys that are running in their 70 and they're still doing, just keep on running. And it reminded me of Cliff Young. You remember him? Remember Cliff Young? That old Aussie guy who used to just turn up to these ultra marathons.
Yeah.
He was about 70 or something. They called it the Cliff Young Shuffle.
I do. And do you remember Ron Grant from our part of town? Do you remember he used to run around the Centenary Lakes and he used to have a bakery in Caboolture and stuff?
I remember the name, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
Oh.
But yeah, the Cliff Young Shuffle was, people used to laugh at him. All these ultramarathon runners used to laugh at him because he would literally he wouldn't do big strides like an athlete. He'd just shuffle along. But he'd never stop shuffling. And he'd do it for days on end.
Yeah.
And he beat all of these people.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. He just doesn't stop. So there's a lot more to it. The book's way more exciting than I can explain. It goes into a lot of psychological stuff, and it's a good book. I know this has taken a while, Craig, but this is important stuff. I've wedged a film in there. Is that bad? I don't want to do films with Tom. But I just saw this film on YouTube by this channel called Rogue Fitness or something. And they do documentaries about, I don't know why it came up for me. It's called Fullstyrka. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's Icelandic for full strength. And it's this amazing documentary about these massive stones that still lay in places around Iceland that these strongmen have been lifting for hundreds of years. It's epic.
Yeah.
So they'll go to this place where it's just this massive valley and rocks and mountains, and then there's just these big boulders. And they just say, these exact boulders were lifted. It was kind of a way to... there's a couple near this fishing village, and if you could lift this stone, you'd get a place on one of the fishing boats. Because they go, oh, geez, that guy's can handle himself.
Yeah.
And so these guys are just, these massive brutes are just cruising around Iceland in this documentary and talking about these stones and picking them up. And, it was the most weirdest topic I've ever watched a documentary on. I just wasn't expecting it, but I watched the whole thing, and the entire documentary is available on YouTube on their channel, and I will put a link to that in the show notes. Sit down and watch it. It's a good watch. It's fun.
That sounds funny. That sounds
a lot of history in it. These guys are massive beasts, but they're the most gentle, quiet, humble guys, and they're picking up these stones that weigh as much as a car.
Jeez.
Incredible. All right. This is one of my favourite parts. It's where we give a few shout-outs. Now, we get a lot of messages coming in through every kind of medium. I want to say that we appreciate every single one that comes in. It doesn't matter if it's a comment on an Instagram post or if it's a private message on Facebook or whatever. I get or a comment on YouTube. I just get them from all different places, and I make a point of trying to respond to every single one as quickly as I can. A couple of them really stood out to me between the last podcast and this one, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to, if I can take a second, are you all right with your beer there, mate? Everything good?
Yeah.
Not thirsty?
No.
The first one I want to talk about is from Andy Roos. I think that's how you pronounce it. ROOSE. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his entire name on the podcast. Mate, thanks so much for your message. So this is really interesting because he's currently training to go over to Everest Base Camp in 2020, May 2020. So in about a year's time, Andy's heading over to hike to Everest Base Camp, which is a big undertaking. And at the moment, he's training for it. He said he found our podcast, and this is a pretty common theme. Everyone seems to binge listen. So he says, I found your podcast on Spotify and binged all 10. I've started training for a trek to Everest Base Camp in May 2020, and most of my training is hiking with a heavy pack. So this is where it gets really cool.
Mm-hmm.
My last hike was long and cold. Starting out on the trail was super muddy, being frozen on top. But as the day went on, everything was frozen solid. That's hard for us to comprehend.
Yeah.
Where we come from.
Yeah.
That's full on. That is pretty cold.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to say everything started to melt during the day, but it was the opposite.
I think if we were in that climate, I may not enjoy hiking.
I wouldn't be doing a podcast about it. I'd be doing a podcast about how shit hiking is.
This could be completely different.
Look, there's this podcast I've started about playing chess in the warm.
No, we're going to a cold place soon. But,
Anyway, at about 6 mile mark, I wasn't having any fun. And at that point, I could have taken a shorter trail and went back to the car in about an hour. But I kept hearing you guys in the back of my head.
Nice.
Podcast 10, Make Adversity Your Friend, kept me walking. By the time I'd finished, I'd covered almost 12 miles in 20-degree weather. My water bottle, as well as most of my body, frozen.
You're kidding.
His water bottle was frozen.
Wow.
Man, we almost got him in trouble. Listening to us almost got him injured.
Jeez.
When I got back to the trailhead, I was stoked, frozen, sore, tired, but knowing that there's not much I can't handle. Keep up the great work. We are listening and learning, and that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Craig, because if we're not sharing this information, this podcast isn't about us telling you how amazing and tough we are. It's about us telling everybody all the stupid mistakes we've made and what you probably shouldn't do and what works for us and maybe what you should think about. And just to know that people are getting value out of it, it's just fantastic, mate. Thanks so much for the message, Andy. It was awesome to read that. And I quickly replied and told him that as well. Now, the next one was an Instagram message that I received. Let me just pull that up real quick. This was only about a week ago. James, if you're listening, mate, James sent me this message. He's actually from Australia. I can't remember. Andy didn't actually say where he was from, but given that his water bottle was frozen, it wasn't Australia, I'm thinking. Anyway, we do know that James is from a place called Armidale, and Craig and I know that well.
Oh, yep.
So we've been down there before. Now, he's actually training for a trek in Nepal as well, coincidentally. But I won't go into too much detail of his personal situation, but let me just say that he's had some kind of medical issues within the family that have kept him off the trail, because he's had to look after family members for an extended period of time. So he hasn't been into the outdoors for quite a long time, but he does say that, in his first message, he said he's been listening to the podcast for a while now, really enjoying the content, and he's training for this trek to Nepal. That's actually in April, so yeah, that's not far away, mate. And then he says, your podcast has really helped keeping me motivated. Thanks for all your hard work putting each episode together and for the inspiration. I thought that was fantastic, so I replied, and then the next message I got back from him went into quite a bit of detail about what this getting back into the outdoors actually means to him. And he says at the end here that your podcast has really made a difference and been part of the process of getting me back. And that's still just so humbling. Again, the next message he says, I'm looking forward to your next episode to keep stoking the fire. James, it means a lot to know that us, just carrying on and just talking about something that we're passionate about actually flows through to somebody being able to utilize that as motivation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's really nice.
I know, it is. It's incredible.
Have these conversations with people and make a difference.
Because this platform is one way. We're sitting here talking to microphones, hoping that somebody finds it interesting. And we spoke about this before the show, before we started recording, and because we've been preparing for this hike, our sponsors have been sending us, not only have they been really gracious with getting us set up with making sure that we've got the gear that we need to go on this little adventure we've got coming up, but a couple of them, when they've sent us packages, have slipped a few extra things in there and said, hey, look, if you're listeners of the podcast would like some giveaways, by all means, give these things out. So those two, Craig and I, decided that we got sent some pretty wicked truckers caps from Caribbean, and also we got sent some polarized sunglasses, from Rios Gear, that are another one of our sponsors. And I reckon both of those guys could do with some polarized sunnies for hitting Everest and Nepal.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of other things as well. What would you even call it? There's this kind of wicked, it's like a Swiss Army knife for eating, right?
It's a kitchen tool.
Yeah. So Caravi also gave us this fold-up thing, and it actually flips out, and it's got a proper spoon, knife and fork that flips out, and a bottle opener, which you'd probably find pretty useful, wouldn't you, Craig?
I just struggled before.
So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in touch with both Andy and James and send them out a pack of stuff from our sponsors. So, just kind of show we really appreciate, and we do try and give back to you guys when and how we can with stuff like that. So thanks, guys. Thank you very, very much.
Nice one.
Wow, that was pretty heavy, Craig. I know that took a long time. Anybody that's still listening, I appreciate your patience, but there was a lot of important stuff that I wanted to get through there.
That's good.
But we're here. Mate, do you need to go to the loo or anything?
I will.
You will later on?
Probably.
Can you get through a bit before that?
Yeah.
All right, good. I've got a list. It's good to know. It's good to know.
There may be a
He's
pit
on to
stop.
his second beer already.
There might be a pit stop.
This could go downhill.
Yes. Hey, it's Saturday night.
It is Saturday night. It's, what is it? It's almost 11 p.m. So this is our little party.
Yeah.
All right. What's in our packs? We had a fair few conversations about this week, and we decided that one of our good supporters and listeners, and he follows us on Instagram under the name of, if I'm correct, something like Pookie the Wonder Horse or something similar to that.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Anyway, he had a suggestion of, hey guys, can you do a podcast about hiking on a budget or budget gear? And at the same time, with this trip coming up, Craig and I wanted to do something on all the gear that we currently have and what we pack and how we do it. And what I said to Craig was perhaps we could combine the two, and when we're talking about what we currently have, we could also touch on what we started with and perhaps a cheaper alternative. So that's the angle we're going to attempt to take on this. But I think there could be a few arguments. I don't know how this is going to go.
How are we going to do this anyway?
I got a list, man. I got a
You
list.
got-
So I think we just start at the top. I've broken it down into major categories. So first aid and safety, sleeping systems, shelter, cooking and eating, food, clothing and boots, and then other, things like hair dryers.
Yeah, because you can put it into categories in a number of ways. And there's some things that are just fundamental gear
That's right.
that,
And there's things that go into a couple of categories, but I'll mention that along the way.
so we'll just go through it, eh?
Yeah, yep. What I don't really consider this gear, but I do want to touch on it, because the first thing I want to just get it out of the way quickly is photography gear, because it's not actually hiking gear, right?
Yeah, right.
But for a lot of people, it's pretty important, whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung, that you can take some really good video and images on, right through to people like us that want to carry an extra 5 or 10 kilos of DSLRs and GoPros and stuff.
Yep.
So I don't really want to talk about the camera gear, because each to their own, whatever level, whatever you're going into the wilderness for will dictate what kind of photography equipment or filming equipment you take, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's ways of carrying that stuff, which I just wanted to lightly touch on. Once we get through that, we'll move into I guess what I'd call the mandatory items that every hiker would have, whether you like photography or not. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I'd actually thought we were going to almost leave the photography
Yeah,
stuff
I did
out of
consider
it.
it. I 100% considered it, which is why I really only want to talk about how I carry the photography gear real quick, not what the photography gear is, because it's kind of irrelevant. Our stuff is, would probably be far superior to what a normal person is going to take on a day hike.
Yeah, I just weighed up the gear I'm going to carry, and I've got 6 kilos.
6 kilos of
camera gear,
camera,
and
yeah.
sometimes up to 9.5 kilos.
Wow.
If I took everything that I would like to take
Like
on a trip.
power banks and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
So other people are just carrying a phone,
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I tell you what, our mate Joel bought his Samsung on a forward drive trip we did, and some of that footage that he took on his phone and the photographs were just top notch.
Absolutely.
Makes me think I'm doing it all wrong.
Sometimes, yeah.
So bear with me for a second.
Okay.
The way I carry my DSLR is on a low pro chest rig, which means that it's a pouch that goes across the kind of between about where the sternum strap is on the pack, and it's called a top loader. I can just put the camera in there and just close the flap. Walk for an hour, and if I see something interesting, I just unzip the flap, pull the camera out, take a photo. It's as simple as that. It's not for everybody. It's just for me. That's the best way for me to have it. It works. The only other thing I really want to touch on is I dry bag everything. So all of the electronic equipment I have separate dry bags for. And I also have a spare dry bag for my entire camera. So it's got a little rain cover that pulls out over the chest rig, which does a really great job, fine for showers and that sort of stuff. But if it starts to get serious, I'll take the chest rig off, put it into its own dry bag, and then put it in my pack and kind of forget about it and use the GoPro until the rain stops. That's pretty much all I wanted to touch on as far as photography gear or how to carry photography gear. My super duper budget tip is Ziploc bags are so useful, and not just photography gear either. I use them for a lot of stuff, all of my first aid equipment and everything. You can get, if you get a good brand, it's got the double kind of zip at the top, so the double seal, and you can get them in quite large sizes. You can fit a lot of stuff in, so I use them for camera batteries and all sorts of stuff, lapel mics and everything. Yeah, that's worth looking at. You got anything to add to that, Craig?
No, mate. I honestly think that could be a whole separate, discussion. Is all of our electronic gear.
Yeah, I definitely think absolutely, because you could go in and start talking about solar panels and power banks and everything. But I think that's a photography specific podcast episode, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. So
I'm happy to just leave it at that for now and give people that knowledge of how I carry the gear rather than what gear I actually carry.
That's it. Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that people might want to start with some categories that I've sort of come up with a few from, like, I don't know if you want me to start with some of the other issues that we're going to be talking about today.
Well, do you want me to give you a heading of first aid and safety, and do you have stuff that falls into that category?
Oh, mate, for sure.
Or do you want me to start and you can add? We really haven't rehearsed this, have we?
No, so that's why, because what I've done, just so you know what I've done, and then you can tell me what you've done, and we might work this out together. But I've gone through the pack itself, some clothing, some footwear, shelter and sleeping I've put together because they tend to live together in my pack. Then I've gone through equipment, and that's where a whole bunch. And is where I've got a massive checklist now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so do I.
I go through that when I'm about to leave the home.
What I'll do is I'll go through these categories, and then you just interject with the points that you've got on each one of those anyway.
All right.
But it's interesting you say the actual pack, because nowhere in my notes do I have the actual pack. I've got everything in it. But it's one of the most important stuff. So shall we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think back about that original person wanting to hear something about, a budget approach. And we went hard early on getting a decent pack.
We did.
Two things, pack and shoes. We spent money.
Exactly.
You can approach gear and look at it like, well, there's a certain performance level that comes with spending some money, and we didn't know a lot about packs or footwear, but what we did know was that you needed to consider that.
Exactly.
So we did, and we did well. I believe with what we chose early on was
most definitely
really good pack. And
I
really
guess
good
somewhere
footwear.
along the line, as you say, we picked up that through YouTube or forums or whatever. We picked up that nugget of information, which was don't skimp on your footwear and don't skimp on your pack. And I still stand by that today.
Yes, and I stand by that too. I've got a little caveat that I believe you could get a cheaper pack.
Yep.
You could get cheaper footwear,
Yeah.
and you could still hit the trail, but you would probably have to upgrade that gear. That would be
Sooner.
on the short list very soon.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm just trying to think of how soon I upgraded my pack. Now, the thing is, we bought good packs, but I'm tall and quite lean, and I've got a 32-inch waist, and for some reason, this particular, what was that? Low Alpine was the brand. So good brand, top-notch brand, and we paid good money, like big money for these packs.
400, 350.
Oh, it was massive. I mean, those costs are probably not relevant now because it was so long ago, but it was a lot of money, and it felt good. And what can you do in the store but put a bit of weight in it, walk around and go, oh, I guess I'm just taking your advice. But what I realized years later is I could never get the waist belt tight enough on my hips because there was plenty of room there for someone, with a
Like me.
lot more kilos than me, yeah, to get some, to cinch that down. And then, because my dramas with that pack was all the weight was on my shoulders all the time, and I didn't know any different. So I went through years of getting really sore. Is it traps, the muscle over the top of the shoulder?
Yeah, sure.
And getting big knots in those, and that would start headaches towards the end of a long hiking day and all that sort of stuff. So you can get a cheaper pack. What I'd suggest is you try and spend more time working out, even if it doesn't matter how much the pack costs. Try and find out how a pack should fit you. I guess the only way you can do that is you can go to a store and you can get advice from an expert, but I can tell you right now they're going to push you towards not a budget pack. If you can learn through perhaps YouTube or something, or a friend, if you got a friend who hikes and you trust their judgment, get them to look at some mid-range or cheap packs. But like Craig said, which is really good advice, is sure, go to the cheaper pack. Make sure you like hiking first. Make sure you are in this for the long haul. And then at the earliest possible convenience, get that pack upgraded.
That's right. I mean, you might save $200 by getting a cheaper pack,
Easily,
which will fit the gear. And if you're not carrying a bunch of cameras, you can probably it won't max out that pack, but the straps are not as comfortable.
Yep.
You'll be pretty early on going, hey, this is on my list of upgrades is a better pack. And you'll say, well, if you can go for 1 or 2 trips and not go too far from the car and, see how it goes, and then eventually put the pack on the list. But I've had 2 Low Alpine packs now. I've got the Low Alpine Cerro Torre 6585 when it's expanded. And it weighs 2.5 kilos. It's not a lightweight pack, but it's so comfortable.
Is that what you're using now?
Yep.
Well, isn't that your third Low Alpine then?
No, second, I believe. Maybe.
You bought one on that trip. Oh, no, this would be your second one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that first one was fine, but the smallest things, it didn't have any pockets on the hip at the front, which used to bug me because I wanted to just stick a GoPro in there or something. So anyway, I've been really happy with it's very comfortable. If you're going to do 3 or 4 days, you need to consider that. If you're just doing it, if you're only walking for 2 hours from your car, I don't think it matters as much as we think it does.
That's exactly right. You're going to get away with a lot more if, you're not trying to take all the camera gear in the world and the kitchen sink. So if the weight is down in your pack, you're going to do a lot better, and a cheaper pack can accommodate that. That's fine.
Yeah. If you can get a Denali pack or something that's cheap as, or there's a few other brands that are in between, you may be able to use that pack for a while.
Yeah, or get a good brand that's 2 seasons old or secondhand on the internet or something like that. Someone else who tried hiking and realised that you actually had to go outdoors to do it, and so they sold all their gear. Get that stuff.
Yeah. Actually, you're going to make me very jealous and talk about your pack, mate, because I do love your pack. And tell us what you carry.
Well, the funny thing is, it's called the brand name is Moroka 30, and the reason that none of you will have ever heard of it is because it's actually a hunting pack. And the reason I chose a hunting pack was because I knew that they were designed to carry a lot more weight and carry it well. And also, it has so many pockets and so many different ways to get into the pockets.
It's
because
unbelievable.
there's yeah. So I must have researched for 6 months, and I was looking at, basically I was at the point where money was not an option. So this is, forget about what I said about a budget. I'm not giving you a low budget option right now. I'm telling you, when I got to the point when I was so frustrated with my pack and I knew something was wrong, I just thought, it doesn't matter what it costs or where it is from on the entire planet, I'm getting it. So I researched for 6 months because it's a big investment. And funnily enough, in Australia, this company existed, and this guy actually designed the pack himself over a period of a couple of years and kept adding these pockets where he thought you need pockets. And it's got pockets on the sides, big long ones. It's got a zip through the center to get straight into your gear. It's got the typical bit down the bottom. You can split it into 2 halves. And it's also got pockets on the front of the waist belt, and then it's got lapel pockets as well. So all of that stuff really attracted me. And the most important thing was, this guy's got almost exactly the same build as me, the owner of this company. And when I got that pack, it's got a really thick waist belt. And when I got that pack and I tightened it up, I knew that it was the right thing, because the whole pack would sit on my body before I even did up the shoulder straps. It would just sit against my back just on the waist strap, and I knew that was it. I was sold.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing.
Yeah, it's still one of the best investments I ever made.
Yeah, I love it. I look at it and I go, that's well designed. I imagine it's probably half a kilo heavier than my pack.
Yeah, it's about 3.
Yep.
Yep.
You can get lightweight packs, which I will be looking into in the future, because you can, you really want to count the kilos. There is probably packs for 1.5 kilos that you weigh on your back. So you got to look at that too one day. But at this stage, I'm just wearing something like yours. You could carry a small person in that thing,
Yeah,
I reckon,
quite literally,
and it won't fall apart. And it depends, But that you've got an awesome pack there.
Yeah, it's. I see absolutely no reason to be changing that. I've had it for approximately 4 years now. I've dragged it over cliffs. I mean that in the literal sense. I had it on the end of a rope and climbed up a cliff and dragged it over, and fallen over with it and fallen in rivers with it. When I've slipped over, like a lot's happened to that, and it's tough as nails.
But there's a real thing when we're on a trail and you just say, "Hey, can you get the battery for my DSLR? It's in this pocket on this side, and I can get it for you without if it's mine." Most of my stuff I need on the trail is buried deep inside the pack.
It's a stop. Let's do it on the next break. Stop.
Yeah.
Put it down, open the whole pack up.
That's why I carry a waist pack a lot of the time, because I want to be able to get to that stuff.
Yeah.
So you've got an option there that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm real happy with it. I'll put a link to it on the notes, and I'm sure you'll understand what I mean.
Do you want to?
The places where they, you're talking about these light packs. As soon as you take all those pockets off, as soon as you remove those chassis, and like mine's got aluminium stays in it that you can shape to suit your back.
True.
You take all that stuff out and you're going to drop down to half that weight, but then the pack can't support as much weight as well. So
Yeah.
you've just got to find that balance. And unfortunately, I think you're going to have to maybe do it the wrong way first.
Mm.
If you can borrow packs, our friends, or get cheap packs, secondhand packs or something, I think that's a great place to start. And take it from there. If you've got any questions on any of this stuff, do hit us up. I'm not saying we know everything, but we've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to like move on to something like footwear? Or?
No, I was going to jump straight into just first aid kit. And I put and safety because my first aid kit is a very bright orange. I'm sure you remember, a very bright orange dry bag, so that it just stands out. Like anyone I'm hiking with, I say if I'm unconscious on the ground and you need to get to the personal locator beacon, it's in this top pouch and it's bright orange. You can't miss it. And the reason I put safety there was because the personal locator beacon is not something I consider as first aid, but it is related to safety, and I keep that stuff in the same area. What do you got in your first aid kit?
Okay, well, I got a
Not in great detail, but just roughly.
I don't carry much. I got a personal locator beacon as well. I always carry a snake bandage, a compression bandage.
I do too, since you gave one to me.
I think, yeah, I've got a full-on snake kit now.
I saw that when I walked in.
Yeah, I was just going to grab it, but it's got
crazy.
a splint and everything. It's pretty awesome.
Oh wow!
That'll go on some of the trips in Queensland for sure. But on this trip we're going on, I'm just going to take a couple of small bandages. I'm going to take some Nurofen and Panadol. I'm going to take some. Oh shit! Where is it? When you get to first aid. Oh well, I'm including stuff like sunscreen. I'm including stuff like tweezers. I have a small pair of tweezers. I'm taking toilet paper and tissues. I'm including in that because what I have is a clear pencil case. I know you've got, but I like the fact that I can see inside it, and that's where all of my first aid and personals, I'm calling them, which is even deodorant and stuff like that. I will take some this time, mate.
Good.
Yeah, so
Didn't enjoy last time.
So it's hard to, as I say, like categorize what we've got.
No, it's all good. But I see my first aid kit as being
to that.
It's exactly the same bag.
Oh right.
When I open up that dry bag, it's got my toothbrush in it.
Oh, cool.
It's got toothpaste in it. It's got
Because I've never looked in your bag. You know that.
that makes me feel good. Glad that you haven't been sneaking around in my pack.
This is kind of personal, though. You know what I mean?
It is,
like,
yeah. Well, that's what it's all about.
It's like
I got some stuff that's going to blow your mind. Let me tell
you?
you. I got stuff that's you're going to go, you do not, and I'm going to say I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Have you ever like passed someone on the trail and wanted to like look in their bag and
Just said,
what do you carry?
What do you got in your first aid kit?
I don't know about that.
Emergency blanket. I still carry the Soul emergency bivvy because it's pretty tiny. I have that in exactly the same bag. If I get in trouble and I had to leave my pack, I literally could grab that one bag and I do okay.
Okay.
I do okay. It's not a survival kit, I'm not saying that, but I do okay.
Well, I take a survival kit with me, so you don't carry one at all.
I don't. I kind of...
That's it. That's your first aid.
Have it mixed in with that, yeah. So I carry a knife separately, but I don't actually have a survival kit. But what I would say is, again, inside that same bag, there's a butane lighter,
Yes.
and I've actually got a fire steel in there as well,
Okay.
just in case we get into a spot where we're freezing cold and we need to start a fire.
Okay.
I've always got that. So that exists in that same place. And again, it's all in there for convenience, and it's all in the top pouch. It's all in the, the, what would you call that? The top part of the pack that folds back. The lid. It's all in the lid.
Yeah.
You just go to that, bang, everything's there. I also put my head torch in that same compartment because it's usually something I'm going to need fairly quickly and conveniently, and I'm going to need to know where it is.
Yeah, my head torch lives up there too.
Here's the...
What sort of head torch do you use?
I am using a Petzl. I just upgraded, but I can't remember. I think it's a Ticker. I can't remember. Tikka. I'll find out and I'll put the exact one on.
Yeah, I'm using a Petzl Reactic, they call it. It's a 220 with USB, which is
USB's the
something
bomb.
to talk about.
It is, because I went through the
AAA options.
The AAA options with my first Petzl, and whilst it was a fantastic head torch, I swore that I'd never replace it until it stopped working, and eventually it broke, and I thought, right, now's the time to switch. So now I've got this thing called a Core, which is like
it's a rechargeable AAA, which
yeah, and you put that, you can charge that from USB, which means that you can take you can take a power bank or something and indefinitely charge that thing while you're out.
Yeah.
Having said that, I did that almost 3.5 hour trail run with that thing on the second brightest the entire time, and I don't know when that thing's going to go flat. It's
do you
just
know
so
that,
good.
Well, with my Petzl, and probably with yours, they have a reserve mode. So
Right.
when they hit, there's this last 2 hours where it goes down to, like, I think it's 15 lumens, like it's just to a really low level, but
Right,
it runs
just
for
to get you
the last 2
home.
hours. But no, because yours is a hybrid. You can run standard AAAs through that as which I
do
can't.
like.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of it goes flat or something, and then I'm able to get to if I'm traveling to multiple places or I'm in another country.
Yeah.
I can just say, hey, I'm just going to grab
some
three
battery.
three AAAs and shove it in, and I'm good to go.
But because with my old Petzl, I couldn't actually. I would have only used it a few hours, but I'd be scared that the batteries are not going to last the next trip. So I'd end up having these. I'd have to put new batteries in for every trip.
I'd put new batteries in, and then I was carrying
more as well.
3. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's stupid. So having USB and having a power bank just makes sense for head torch.
USB everything.
Just thought I'd go into that before you go on, but we're talking what's in the top of your pack there, which it's good if we're talking the top of the pack, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and this is all through my checklist of, you say, like, you start with survival gear and what do we call it, first aid. Up in the top, you've got your head torch. You've got, your toiletries and personals, I call them. And also, do you want to hear about my survival kit that I carry with me?
Yeah, I just want to tell you this thing that's going to blow your mind.
You haven't got a thing, have you? That blows my mind.
I do.
What is it?
I carry a little mini tube of super glue.
Oh, yeah.
Because, not that I've ever had to do it, but if you get a
major cut,
you can actually glue it up to a point where, and it's quite safe to do so, is to continue get that thing glued up, and then continue to help and safety, and then take it from there.
I've actually heard that, man.
Yeah. So I've got that's a fairly recent addition. That you can get real mini tubes now, like a 3-pack of mini tubes.
Cool.
Which is I'm telling you, they're tiny, but they're way more than enough for a cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're see, as I said, I don't really have a specific survival kit, but if you wanted to just briefly kind of go through what sorts of things are in there rather than every single item, I think that'd be good. I don't want to hear you go, I've got 3 safety pins and
I have.
it's not enough.
What I did, just so you guys know what's in my pack, which is what we're talking about, I have a SOL, so Survival Del Lunga survival kit that I bought for about $50 online, and it came with some basic stuff, and I like it because it's in a waterproof bag that rolls up at the top, so you can also carry water in that thing if you ever do get into a nasty situation. It came with a flint, some fishing hooks, a line, a mirror, a little compass, small roll-up duct tape in it, and a whistle. I've thrown 4 razor blades, a Sharpie, a micro torch, which is amazing. You might have seen it when we went on our survival, and I pulled it out this week, and it's incredible. It still does this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Anyway,
Yeah.
chemical glow sticks. I've thrown one in there, and they're the ones for the tip of your fishing rod when you're fishing at night.
Oh, yeah.
And you throw, I've got one of them or 2 of them in there because you can just set them alight and they'll just glow all night. 4 tissues and a bit of alfoil fit in this thing, and some salt and pepper, which you just get from like any sort of restaurant that are in the little packets. And so I've got all of that rolled up in this little waterproof thing, and so that's really good to have. Recommend it.
That's good. I won't waste my time carrying all that stuff then if you've got it.
That's good. We can share.
I do always carry salt though in that first aid kit of mine because it's the best thing for getting leeches off. Honestly, you don't even have to touch them. You sprinkle a bit of salt on it, and the millisecond it hits them, they drop off. No dramas. And then I usually just rub salt into the wounds just a quick sort of a sterilization thing until we take a proper break and clean up properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's handy for a lot of reasons. I also use it if I'm getting any sort of a sore throat, I'll put that in some water and then gargle it. That does really well as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got a little Ziploc bag with some cotton balls in it, which I've already soaked in or rubbed in Vaseline.
Yeah.
I keep that for a couple of reasons. One is you've always got this Ziploc bag with a little bit of Vaseline in it. You can just, dip your finger in if you've got some chafing, I don't know, or you're getting a dry spot on your nose or whatever, or some chafing on your arm or whatever, you can just kind of hit it. But also you can pull those cotton wool balls apart and then set them on fire and they'll burn for ages. So they're really good fire starters.
With the Vaseline on it.
Yeah, it burns really slowly, but for a long time, yeah.
I think you told me that before, but I didn't realise that.
Yeah, one time I was testing the theory and I got a cotton ball and then one that was wiped in Vaseline, and I'd set them both on fire and timed it, and the normal one probably burnt in about, must have been about 10 seconds, if that. And then the other one burnt for over a minute.
Really?
Yeah. So more than long enough to get a fire started or something similar.
Mm.
Yeah. Interesting tip. Oh, I'll give you a tip about your Sharpie and your duct tape is roll a duct tape around the Sharpie because it always re-sticks. I think I've got that in my pack at the moment too.
It just uses less space if you just do it that way. Yeah.
And you've just got that one thing that's got both things on it.
That's a good move. Well, in the top, I've got a few other things that don't fit in that little thing. So I always carry some gardening gloves. If we're going for a few days, I make sure I've got some. They're really light little gardening gloves in case we've got to muck around.
It's planting some tomatoes or something. If we're in for the long haul survival situation, Craig's starting a veggie patch.
I knew I was going to get some crap for
did
this.
you bring some?
Look, maybe I should keep
seeds as well.
You told me to be honest. Maybe I should have just left some of this stuff. Now, look, I've got some large zip ties, some big ones. I always carry
Pretty
a few
useful
of them.
too.
They are useful.
If the sole of your boot starts coming off or something silly like that.
So duct tape, I also carry like a little bit.
You're sounding a bit sus, mate, when you carrying gloves, duct tape, and zip ties.
Just wait.
Okay.
I've got a survival blanket. No, that's different.
Is it just like a Hessian sack that you put over people's heads?
So I think that's pretty much the top of. Or no, there's a few other things up in the top there, but that's the main stuff. Dry bags go up in there for like a spare one and a rubbish bag.
Yep. Let's move on to sleeping system.
Okay.
The reason I call it a system is I'm including everything that you need to have a good night's sleep. In my case, as well as Craig's, is whilst I've tested the Zen Bivy, which was, we were very grateful to spark up a conversation with the Zen Bivy crew, and they've sent us one each over. I've used mine once. Did you use yours on that overnighter we did? Yeah. So we've both used ours once, and it's absolutely awesome. I can't wait to get it out right into the wilderness and use it for a full week. So that's it. It's going to be the maiden voyage.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to them on a Skype call last week, so they're equally as excited to hear how it goes.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to explain. I will put the YouTube video up there that explains it much more eloquently than myself. Think of it as a sleeping bag, but then you can kind of, the bottom part, you can cinch it up so it wraps around your legs, and then the top part you can wrap around you like a blanket, but at the same time it's attached to the air mattress underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't do that whole thing where it spins around and gets in a big knot or twists around every time you roll over. It's hard to explain. It's even harder to comprehend when you're so used to just seeing a sleeping bag your entire life. You see this thing, but what I like about it is the how many different ways you can sleep. You can undo the bottom and poke your feet out the bottom if it's too hot, or you can chuck a leg out the side, what's the word for it? To adjust your regulate your body temperature and stuff like that. It's just got so many configurations, which is what really attracted me to it. So I'm more than excited to give that a run.
Yeah, look up the Zen Bivy, guys. It's a pretty cool design. It's
so soft.
Imagined anything like it before, and it's so comfortable soft.
I was saying
there's so much room.
Yeah, I was saying quite literally that after I used it, I thought I'd replace the blanket on my bed with this because it was so soft.
It is so soft. It's so nice.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
It's a tiny bit bulkier than what we've also been using, but that's because it's so much roomier.
Well, therein lies the problem. My first sleeping bag, I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't have any money. I was on a budget, so I grabbed a synthetic sleeping bag, which was on special, and it got me into the wilderness. I used it for years.
All right, you tell these guys about budget sleeping bag options while I go and pee, all right?
Okay, enjoy. Don't hurt yourself. He has been known to do that in the past. What was I talking? He's throwing me now. I was right on track. Okay, so my first sleeping bag was a synthetic sleeping bag, and it was heavy and it was bulky. I went with that because I was scared of if I went with a down sleeping bag. Not only could I not afford it at the time, but I figured that if I got it wet, that it would be, ruined. And so I basically stuck with that for a while. And then it was one of the things that I decided I need to have a pretty major upgrade. So then I moved to a feather down mummy bag. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One is they squash down to an unbelievably small package. They're ridiculously light, literally half the weight of the synthetic bag and half of the physical size in my pack. So I thought this is a great solution. This ticks every box. But if you haven't slept in a mummy bag before, and if you don't understand the concept, I went from what essentially was a large rectangle to sleep in, to then a mummy bag, which is kind of that head and shoulders shape, as the name implies, like a mummy. So sleeping in that I just don't think it's for me. It just doesn't work for me. I find it super restrictive. It's pretty tricky to get in and out of. They've saved weight by only putting a kind of a quarter zip on, so you really got to shimmy your way in and out of it, and it's kind of irritating and stuff. So I went from that, and again, I just knew that I hadn't really nailed the sleeping situation, and I'd been watching the Zen Bivvy for a while, and that's when I gave them a call. So going back to Craig's original point, which is what I'm touching on now, he said that these are a bit bulkier, and they are, because they're not a mummy bag, but what you get with that extra bulk, and it's not that much, but what you get with that extra bulk is, I can hear you over there pouring whiskey, Craig. What you get with that extra bulk is an amazing night's sleep. And at some point in your outdoor experience, you are going to start to realize how amazing it is to have a great night's sleep.
It's important.
And how important it is, especially on a multi-day hike. Anyone can go out in the wilderness, have a bad night's sleep, still wake up the next day, have fun, hike back to the car, go home, have a shower at home, and then sleep all afternoon. We've all done that, right?
Yep.
But it's different when you're going out on those long distance sort of things, and it's night after night after night after night. You're struggling and not enjoying it.
Yeah. So we had a Ferrino Lightech 900.
Yeah.
That's
was a
the
mummy bag. Yeah.
That's what you've been talking about.
Yeah, I was just talking about that, just saying how I went from the typical rectangular synthetic.
Yeah.
I explained all of that.
Yeah, okay.
It's just what I'd find that irritated me the most was I'm a side sleeper. When I pull my knees up, it flattens out the loft, so it flattens out the feathers over my knees, and my knees freeze in the middle of the night.
And we had the same size too, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have been struggling because you're a bit taller.
It's the biggest one they had. It's not too bad, but it's just the mummy shape. I'm just not.
Yeah.
It doesn't gel with me. I'm not interested in it. I'm really excited to take this other one.
If you're on a budget and you can't afford a high performance sleeping bag, just bring some really warm clothes. I know that sounds really, common sense but I think I was really worried about the ratings of my sleeping bags, but a good synthetic cheap sleeping bag plus a decent jacket and some good thermals can keep you warm.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about wearing some, like a microfiber long sleeve top or something. And I remember the first time I went to Tasmania, I nearly froze to death on the first night because I didn't sleep in the tent. I slept in this old wooden cabin thinking it would be warmer, and bad choice. But I ended up getting up at 2 a.m. and putting on my whole puffer down jacket and then getting back in.
Why not? That's like
You
a
know.
sleeping bag, is what
Yeah,
I'm
and I
saying.
put on my rain pants as well.
Yeah.
I managed to warm up and eventually had a good sleep, but it was just a bit of a lesson there that if you've got a bag that's a bit cheaper and lighter, you can actually bulk up by taking and wearing clothes, because you're probably going to take and wear those clothes anyway in the evenings. So, why not double up on the use of them?
Yeah. What's next on the list?
Well, basically that would lead us to the mat, which with the Zenbivy, it's kind of becomes integrated. So it's a thermarest. I can't remember what type it is.
Yeah, I haven't written that down. But
it's a inflatable thermarest with it actually has some loft through it, so it's actually got a bit of like a synthetic kind of almost like a wool through the center of it to give a bit more insulation. I did have, again, a budget option of that was I used to have a thermarest, and it's kind of like that eggshell foam thing, and it folds up. It's like a Z fold kind of thing. It folds up into a rectangle, and I love that thing. I used it for years. I still rate it, and I've still got it. It's really good for throwing in the hammock. It's very thin, but it's incredibly comfortable, at least for me, and very, very, very lightweight. But it doesn't. It's not going to work with something like the Zenbivy because you need the insulation from the ground. Prior to that, I had something which I think you may have had too, Craig, which was a Black Wolf. I had a 3/4 mat.
Oh, yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, so again...
The yellow one.
Yeah, that nice kind of orange colour. So again, I made this decision based on weight, not on comfort. So I went for I'm 6'2" or something. I went for a 3/4 mat, thinking that most of the time I pull my knees up and sleep like that anyway, which is true. But when my feet and bottom half of my legs hang off during the night, when I stretch out, they're on top of the ground and I get cold legs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've figured out that sleep is important.
It has become more and more of a focus. The more I go outdoors, the more I want that one element of the trip to be as good and as an experience as it can, so that it enhances the rest of the trip.
Yeah, and those 3/4 mats were never a good idea. I mean, we were trying to save weight to carry cameras and stuff.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It didn't.
Well, if you look at those two examples right there, I chose a mummy sleeping bag and a 3/4 mat. Both of those put me in a bad sleep situation, and they compounded each other as well. I've got my knees bent and my knees are freezing because of the mummy bag, and then I've got my legs hanging off the end over the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these things. Some people can sleep like that, don't get me wrong. Some people will say, well, just put long pants on. And one thing I did a couple of times was I put my pack down there on the ground and put my legs onto the pack. That works. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Or in their pack. And other people will say, suck it up, princess. Put 2 pairs of socks on. That's fine. That's fine. Each to their own. I'm not going to sit here and argue about that. But it's what works for me. And it's just, after being out there for years, I'm just kind of sick of not having a good sleep. The pillow. The pillow situation.
It's going to get a mention, is it?
Oh, man. It is one of the most difficult pieces of equipment to replicate the way you sleep at home. It is such a tough gig, man. I've gone through every conceivable way to try and make a pillow or buy an inflatable pillow, or I went through this phase, which actually wasn't too bad. I went through a stage where I was getting a dry bag, stuffing a jumper in it, doing it up, leaving a little bit of air in it, then putting a microfiber fleece kind of jacket, wrapping it and making a pillow. That was pretty good. And I did that for quite some time, up until just recently, to be honest. But what happened a couple of times was in the middle of the night, the air eventually was seeping out of the dry bag, and so it was actually deflating.
Yeah.
And there wasn't enough loft in the jacket to keep my head up. So again, the Zembivi has a built-in pillow with this really soft padded material over the top. I've used it. I liked it. I can't wait to get it out in some rugged conditions and keep using it and come up with a verdict at the end of that. Have you got any? I think I just gave the budget pillow solution there, right there, but I don't think there's anything more nasty than that.
Pillows don't cost much, or just use some clothing or something. You'll experiment and you'll work out what works for you. Everyone's different.
It's painful.
Just like at home.
My ears, like you, something you perceive to be soft, within 2 hours of lying on it with your ear, it is not soft.
So I use a little, it's like a bean shape, so that it just supports my neck and gives me a little bit of on each side, rather than like a rectangular pillow. Long story, but it's complicated to get that right. You're dead right.
Yeah, it sounds stupid. It sounds like we're soft or something. Oh, I listened to this podcast. All they went on about was it, they couldn't sleep properly. Little crybabies. Oh, my pillow's not very good. Oh, get it. I use a shoe. I put a shoe there and I sleep on a shoe on the dirt. I know we're going to get this.
Yeah.
People would have stopped listening by now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, just to add to that, is my entire sleep system is, depending on the size of the item, it's all individually dry bagged. I've always had the philosophy that you should be prepared for your entire pack to get wet, get rained on or something. And one particular hike, I was hiking waist deep through a river and I lost my footing and my hiking pole. I tried to come down on my hiking pole and even that gave way, and my entire body, my entire pack, everything was submerged. So the only thing I lost out of that or got wet was my phone, because at the last minute at the car, I put it in a pouch in my pack, but I did not put it in a Ziploc or anything. And so I lost a phone. That was a good lesson there. But think about how much worse it would have been if all my sleeping bag and everything we would have had to turn around and hike back to the car.
Yeah, that's only going to happen to you once, and
it's only going to happen once. I mean, I'm pretty grateful that it was only that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that goes for everything too. I'd say that for everything.
Yeah.
That probably segues pretty good into shelter, because that's part of sleeping. You got to sleep in something.
All right. Tell us all what you sleep in.
Well,
under.
We both sleep in the same. Well, we were about to sleep in not literally the same tent, but you've got the same tent as me.
Yeah,
now.
I've got a top tent now.
So yeah, we both got I got a tarp tent notch about 4 years ago, and if I'm not using a hammock, I use that. We actually did an episode called Hammock versus Tent, and I go into a lot of detail about the notch in that, so I'm not going to go into it now. It requires hiking poles to be used as the poles. What I like about that is you've basically reduced your tent to 600 grams, because I carry poles anyway. I hike with poles, especially on brutal terrain. So I've got them there anyway. They become the poles of the tent. Done and dusted. I'm happy with that. It's a tent that has vestibules on both sides. A vestibule is an area outside of the sleeping area, but still underneath the protection of the outer fly. And some lighter weight tents, beware for you new hikers, some lighter weight tents don't have a vestibule at all, and that's how it's lighter and smaller. And it means that your pack will literally sit outside in the rain or the dew or the snow, or be further away from you. What I love about the notch is we've got vestibules on both sides, so I'll drag my pack in out of the weather, have it right next to where I sleep, and I can even unzip the netting, put my hand out and grab stuff out of the pack when I'm laying there. But then the other side is completely open to unzip and get out if I need to go to the toilet or anything through the night. So that's something to consider, is ease of use, getting in and out of that shelter. We've both experimented with cheaper, lighter bivvies, and I've had a few horror situations trying to do that. Poor ventilation, restricted sleeping. I know you tried that Black Wolf one-man bivvy a few times, didn't you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it can get all like condensation.
Yeah, because it's a single layer. It's like a coffin.
Suffocate in there.
Yeah, especially if it's raining, you can't open the top up. And
when it's
air.
cold, oh man, you just want to have it all closed up, and then it's just
then you start gets
awful. But so, I mean, part of our aim for this podcast was to talk to people who are just trying to get on a budget to shelter themselves. And if you have a pack that can carry a few kilos, you just get a bigger tent, that might weigh 2 kilos or 2.5. But be careful you don't have just something that's not very good performance and might be very heavy, because I don't think that'd be much fun at all.
Yeah, the weight.
It's just the weight.
It is. The more money you pay, the lighter you're going to get. That's a fact, and it's kind of the same with all hiking gear, unfortunately. Something you could consider, and it's definitely something that we've done, is it's not for this trip, but we sleep in hammocks a lot. Again, pros and cons of that are in that in a previous episode. I would consider that in some ways, and it depends where you live, but in some ways I've seen people just string up those kind of parachute material hammocks without a fly or anything in good weather, and just sleep in those. And it depends on your climate and the area you're in.
Yeah, but you got to be careful leaving home with that sort of shelter when it's not good shelter,
Well, I guess we've got to include people that just pull up to a camp area and string it up, so they potentially might have their car there.
Yeah, that's fine.
You could always jump in the car.
Like, we can set ours up like that too, but we've got the fly there in case it rains. I think that's pretty important.
And speaking of flies, there's one particular trip, and there is a photo on our Instagram account of it, where I just used a tarp. Like, I literally just took a tarp and set it up with hiking poles in a configuration where it was almost like a triangle, where it started underneath me, so I was sleeping on tarp, and then it went up to a point above me, and then it just had a little lip that came out. And I just slept in there, straight on the ground on my sleeping bag.
Hardcore.
I had a fire in front of me, so it was nice and reflective off the back of the tarp. But it was actually a really, really good sleep, because it wasn't restrictive at all. You could hang your legs out the bottom. You could kind of roll around. So there's places in the world where that is an option. If you're in New Zealand, if you don't know this, New Zealand has no poisonous snakes, no snakes. It has no poisonous spiders, doesn't have scorpions, doesn't have anything. It doesn't have crocodiles. It doesn't have anything that can harm you. It's like some kind of paradise.
How'd that happen?
I don't know.
What?
So you can go to New Zealand in summer and sleep on the ground or whatever, and it doesn't matter. Like, it literally, you cannot get hurt unless a wild boar came and tore you to pieces as you slept. That would not be cool. But you know what I mean.
That's
like
nice,
here, Craig and I were camping recently and sitting around the campfire, and I felt something going up the leg of my pants, and I just kind of flicked my hand down there, and when I turned my head torch on, it was a scorpion. And that was just sitting around the campfire. So you can't really afford to be somewhere around here in that rainforest kind of terrain and have those things crawling all over you.
Mm-hmm. And so if you want to do what I do, just for the sake of the podcast, the Hennessy Ultralight, and I've got a backpacker zip. That's the latest one. In Australia, it's pretty hard to get the Hyperlight zip. So with the exchange rate and the cost of shipping, getting these Hennessy. If you live in America, just get the Hyperlight zip. It's 120 grams lighter. It's just a tiny bit more expensive, and the materials are fantastic. And that's my first one, was a Hyperlight zip, Hyperlight Classic. But the Hyperlight zip would be what I would get. But I got the backpacker because I had them in stock here, and I got a good deal on it. And it's only £2 or 800 grams, something like that. $200, $220.
Well, probably a lot less in the US.
Yeah, they get a good deal there. So that's the one to get.
The hammock that I've just purchased, I actually purchased it last year.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, so it hasn't arrived yet because they're just completing. It was a Kickstarter campaign. And it's a company that's not new to hammocks, and they're not new to Kickstarter campaigns. They're called Sierra Madre.
Yeah, right.
So Sierra Madre have been around for years, and they've done other Kickstarters, which are, if you've ever heard of the Nube, N-U-B-E hammock system, that's been around for a while. And so they've released another one now, which I invested in, and that should be here, I guess, within the next month or two. And it's a flat lay system, so it should be equal to, if hopefully not better than, a Hennessy. It has a few other functions that I know for a fact Hennessy don't have, and my current hammock certainly does not. You know, things that just little thoughts that they've put into the fly. You can actually close the fly up on the ends and completely, so that rain can't come in the ends. There's a gear stash, like a mini hammock that hangs under the main hammock, and it can support your whole backpack.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other things that I, can't think of right now. The strap system and everything is, but I mean it's not a cheap hammock.
But you'll be carrying that in your pack, mate. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Going back to, I've been using a cheap hammock for years, and I can't say I've enjoyed every aspect of hammock sleeping, and I know why. It's the sleeping like a banana. That's the problem.
Yep.
Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, there's heaps of hammocks out there, but we certainly rate that for shelter, if because of the weight and potentially a good sleep if you get it right.
Yeah, I definitely think you're on the right track if you're using a hammock, or hopefully I'm on the right track when this Sierra Madre turns up, because it's supposed to have a similar theory. Cooking and eating, not including food. I've got that as a completely separate item.
Right.
Craig and I both use the same stove, so it's pretty easy to talk about that. It's the Optimus Crux. It's a stove system which compromises. It doesn't compromise at all. It comprises of
Comprises of.
a two pots, so one larger pot and a little smaller one, almost like a mini frying pan.
Yeah.
They kind of slot together, and in between that you can fit your full gas canister, your little the actual stove component itself that screws into that. I jam a Cedar Summit cup, the ones that you can flatten. I put one of those in. It's exactly the right size.
Yep.
I also put a little stand in there that the gas canister can sit on, and also put a little butane lighter in there as well. So, and down the side of the bag that it all goes in, I just slide a spork as well. So when I go to grab that to make a coffee or make dinner, I know that it's all in the one spot. I go to where I want to cook dinner and everything's there.
Yep.
It's the same one that I bought when I first started hiking, and I've never changed or upgraded it. I've considered, I've looked at other things. I've never found a reason to stray from that at this point, and I can't really see that happening for a while.
We are exactly on point about that, mate. I fully find it to be the best system. It's all in one. I've looked at others.
I have, yeah.
I need to sort of probably replace one component of it, and I'm just going to get the same because I can't see anything on the market that keeps it in that realm.
You see, when you think about the other examples we've been given where I went from a cheap synthetic bag, and it was a very large jump to the down bag. It was also a significant improvement, right? It was not a 2% improvement. It was a massive improvement. From my first pack to my second pack, the pack I've got now, it wasn't 5% better. It's about 70% better. So if I'm going to upgrade this cooking system, I don't want a cooking system that's 3% better. I don't even want a cooking system that's 10% better. It would have to be so unbelievably light and compact, and I just don't think that thing exists.
No.
Everyone cooks differently. A lot of people use jet boil because a lot of people, all they want to do is heat up water as quickly as possible, pour it into a dehydrated meal bag, pack it away, eat it, move on. And I do not have a problem with that whatsoever because I often find myself doing that. The difference with this system is you can actually get a bit creative. You can heat stuff up. You can portion stuff out. I eat out of the smaller pot quite often. Use it like because it's got a fold-out handle. So I'll use that to eat while the other part contains hot water. And then I can reheat hot water to wash the other part. It's just got a lot of versatility.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit what you get used to, but I think also we really rate this. So if you can get your hands on you'll put a link to it.
Yeah, I'll
Optimus
put a
Crux.
picture on there.
And it's
a
the
link to
weekend
website. I think it's
version.
called a Weekender or something.
Because the light version, the burner doesn't fold.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So make sure it's the weekend.
Weekender, it folds flat, and then it actually fits in that little
pouch
dome underneath the bottom of a gas canister.
It's incredibly well designed.
It is pretty cool. We actually threw together a review on it years ago, but it was one of our first reviews, and it really didn't cover the things that I think we needed to, so we just we didn't ever put it up.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
No, we didn't even. I didn't even edit it or put it up because I didn't think it was worthy.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm quite surprised it's not as popular as.
So am I.
If you look online at what people are purchasing, the Optimus Crux is not.
Yeah, I reckon it's because it's a European brand. I can't remember if it was Swedish or something like that.
Because I was gonna front up tonight and say, Tom, is there something better than it? And yeah, you haven't found anything. I haven't found anything.
There's not
Okay.
not for my needs.
Not for what
not
we're
the
looking
way
for.
I want to do
A
things.
single person, possibly two, but a single person cooking system. It's great.
Yeah, we've taken it on. Just there's been occasions where I've said to you, "Are you taking yours?" And then I said, "I won't even bother taking mine because it can cater for two people.
Absolutely.
I'll just bring my cup to have a coffee, but I'm not bringing the gas because we're only going out for one night or something."
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a couple, you could easily just take that one stove.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way you'd need two.
No.
You just take that one between the two of you, heat up the water,
Yeah.
divvy it out.
Just like shelter, you can probably split a two-person.
Yeah,
tent
that's
up
right.
and
You can
stuff
actually.
like
That's
that.
a really good point with a lot of things. Is you can start to split that weight between you if you're a couple. It's kind of a few advantages there, really.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Cedar Summit cup. I've got a long-handled Cedar Summit spoon. Sounds like a funny thing to mention, but it was a game changer when you use these dehydrated meals because the packets are so deep. What you find is if you try and use a typical spork, which I actually rate, I think I've got a Light My Fire titanium spork, which I really love, but you end up getting all of this sticky crap over the back of your hand when you're trying to stir deep into the bottom of the packet. And so I bought a long-handled titanium Cedar Summit, and I've had that for years and years, and it is unbelievable. It weighs less than a pen, a biro. Like, it's ridiculously light, and it does a great job of getting down there. Yeah. Budget versions of stoves are not hard to come by. What we're talking about here is top of the line. Budget version of that is not hard to come by. You can get cheap knockoffs that will get you into the wilderness and you'll have a good time. You can buy a canister of gas and you can just buy the top burner part that screws on, have none of the pots and pans, take a mug, like one of those camping mugs.
Yeah.
Take a cheap, lightweight fry pan or something, or a pot.
Yeah, because you can cook in those cups, right?
You can.
Yeah.
That you can get big ones as well. So you can get out of that pretty simply. That's one area where you could actually still have a quite a good experience with cooking
And if that's what you're doing, the stove itself from the Optimus Crux is pretty good, but there's a lot of really good lightweight stove heads.
There
Just
is.
the stove
Yeah.
system that clicks onto the
That's right.
the butane. You can have fun choosing one of them.
Yeah, and then I've seen knockoffs, like so cheap rip-offs of very similar things to the Optimus Crux, as in the pot
With
thing.
the pots and stuff. I've seen them
Yeah,
too.
so
you can get them,
you can
half
get
the
them
price
for
or less.
way less,
Yeah.
like a tenth of the price, dirt cheap, and then buy a little stove thing that screws on the gas canister, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you've got something. Now, it's going to be nowhere near the quality. As I said, I'm using the same stove from how many years have we had that stove?
Feels like 8 or 10.
I think it's got to be at least, it's got to be around 8 for sure.
Yeah.
It's got to be 8 to 10 years. So, I do look after it. I do clean it well. I don't use steel and scratch it and everything when I'm cooking. But I do not think that cheaper versions are going to last that long. But do they get you into the wilderness eating hot food and sitting there drinking a coffee in the morning? Yes, they do. They'll tide you over to get you to that next point. Food. Things to put in the stove, Craig. We've pretty much covered the dehydrated meals or freeze-dried.
Yeah.
I pack a lot of bars, kind of like protein / granola bars, things like that. little things that I can put in the pockets at the front of the pack and just kind of eat either on the move, or if we just have a 10-minute break, I can just get those out and I don't have to prepare anything.
Yeah, I really wasn't going to put much in this. I think it's a personal thing, and I don't think you need to follow too many rules with food. You need to have water and you need to have food. That's for sure. So make sure you think a little bit ahead. And dehydrated meals have really proven themselves for us, but they're not very creative. But
No, they taste better. I think if you ate one at home, you wouldn't appreciate it. But when you're been out there hiking all day and it's raining and cold or something, they taste pretty good. But what I will say is again, food's easy on a budget as well. What you're looking for is calorie dense food. So food that doesn't take up a lot of physical space, but it has a lot of calories in it. Things like stuff like peanut butter and granola bars. Something I'd add to the food section, which is not technically food, is some kind of electrolyte drink. There's been quite a few people I've hiked with that have had cramps through losing salt through sweat. I think that it's something I only really started taking pretty seriously a couple of years ago, and it's pretty easy and cheap to get some powder in a Ziploc bag, or even get those dissolvable tablets that you just throw into a cup of water and try and keep those electrolytes up. Stuff like jerky or biltong, that sort of stuff. A lot of people are quite good at doing that stuff themselves in the oven with the oven door open. It doesn't last as long, like it's not going to last for weeks, but it is going to last for a couple of days hiking. That's good nutrition, high in protein, easy to eat on the trail. Excuse me.
I think you're going to be taking a bit of that with us this next trip. I'm
definitely taking jerky.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that supply for sure. But definitely, the muesli bars and as you said, granola bars, just so easy, and they don't need to be hydrated or whatever.
Yeah, trail mix. I've gone away from trail mix lately and to the granola bar sort of thing. I don't know why. It's just a taste preference. What I also say as well is make sure you have some, all your new and season hikers, make sure you got some treats in there. There's just things that are really, at the end of the day, if you've done it tough and maybe it hasn't gone how you planned, there's things that just mean a lot to you. That book that I mentioned at the start, Craig, the Beyond the Horizon, that the rugby player, when he was going across, he also went across Antarctica. He would take a bag of, he had a bag of Jelly Bellies, those jelly beans?
Yeah.
And I think he would count out 10 and put them in separate Ziploc bags. So he would have 10 a day. So we'd get to the end of the day and open this little bag of Jelly Bellies and just be completely
in heaven,
beside himself. Yeah, just in heaven because of the sweetness and the chewiness and it's such a abstract flavor. When you're in the wilderness, everything's kind of bland, and then there's something like that just perks you up.
Well, I'll just say, please, nobody forget to take coffee.
Yeah.
Do not forget.
Yeah, that should be. It was actually on my list, but I thought it spoke for itself.
That's good stuff.
Clothing and boots. I threw boots in there, but I know we've already touched on it. Happy to just delve into it real quick again. It's, as Craig said, we kind of did well on our boots straight up, and I still use the same brand. In fact, it's the same. Technically, it's the same model. It's just a version up from the first pair of hiking boots, the Salomon. I can't remember what they're called.
Quest.
3D Max or something.
Quest 4D now?
Yeah, it's 4D now. Yeah.
Quest 4D.
Absolutely epic boots. We stumbled across them by pure accident. Well, and probably some good advice in the shop. And I've never strayed. I'm wearing Salomons now, trail runners. That's what I ran in that half marathon in as well. I also rate Merrell very highly. Although I only have low cut shoes and trail runners in Merrell, I still rate that quality. I wear high tops, so they're ankle covering boots as you do, but you're also pretty partial to getting out in sort of low cut boots as well, probably more so than me.
No, I've strayed. I've got I'm really always going out in the 510s.
Yep.
That's all I wear now.
What are you going to do on something long and cold like the Tassie trip?
510s.
Really?
No doubt.
Do they cover your ankles or not at all?
Yeah.
Oh, they do come up. Okay.
Yeah, they are. They're the Camp 4 mids.
Rightio. Yeah.
I am sold. They're 200 grams lighter than the Salomons each, and I just absolutely love their grip. They are just super, and they're in water because they don't have that waterproofing, and they just dry quicker than the Salomons, and they just don't build up all that weight when you get them wet. They're just super for going through creeks and stuff.
Yeah, there's something to be said about, people say get Gore-Tex boots so that you don't get your feet wet, but the flip side of that is, as you say, if water goes in there, it struggles to get out, and also it can potentially restrict airflow to your feet, and that's not a good thing for anybody.
Yeah.
Wet feet means blisters and layers of skin coming off on longer days or multi-day hikes. So it's something to keep in mind, and I think if you're going to get a cheaper pair of boots, then you might want to invest in more expensive socks. So merino wool socks with nice support. You'll look at that and you'll say, as I did the first time I bought a pair of merino socks, that is roughly about 10 times the amount I should be paying for one single pair of socks.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. I thought, what the heck? I just couldn't believe how expensive they were. I went ahead, purchased them, wore them, and instantly I understood why I had spent that money, because there is no comparison to merino socks. Absolutely. I've tried other things, but I just keep going back to that. And now with the availability of the Bluey merino socks for us, being that we're ambassadors for that product, like there's no reason whatsoever not to wear merino socks.
Yeah, but just quickly on a budget, if you've got something that will handle the terrain, that just give it a go and see where it sits in your list of upgrades, because it's really important that you get out there, and these footwear, there's so many different types, and there's so many different elements to why you select this and that. And if I selected some footwear a few years ago, I don't think I would have selected quite what I would select now. It takes a little bit of experience for me to I don't know, to know what to wear. And there's different trips for different boots. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's important to mention as well. Look, I think you can just put a half decent pair of running shoes on, and they'll take care of any day hike you could do.
That's
right. Probably
right.
take care of any multi-day hike as well. It's not a place to get hung up and say, well, I better not try this hiking stuff because I don't have these high boots that I see everyone wearing.
But there is a significant difference when you go and get a high performance
There is.
boot or a shoe.
You can feel it. There's a lot of people, and it comes back to that Born to Run book I was telling you about. When you put your feet in boots, then even shoes, the only joint that's moving is the ankle. So then when you load up with a heavy pack, and it's going to be heavy, if you haven't trained for that sort of thing, you're kind of loading up that ankle joint. So that's why you see so many people with high top hiking boots, is purely to support that ankle, because you are putting some strain on there. So if you're running out with a day pack, those low cut running shoes are not going to be a problem whatsoever. But just take it easy and take into consideration potentially getting some higher cut boots if you're going to move out into heavier packs and stuff like that. Look, I think there's a whole kind of... I'm not going to go into every piece of clothing that I take.
No.
Because this is another one. It's similar to food. It's each to their own. Do you like long sleeve shirts or short sleeve shirts? Take whatever you want.
Yeah.
What I'll quickly do though is hit what I consider to be important things, like make sure, depending on the climate, make sure you're taking some kind of a base layer, so some kind of thermals. Doesn't matter if they're cheap synthetics. If you can afford some nice merinos, go for it.
Yeah, that's what I sleep in every time.
Yeah, I have 2 sets. I have one set that stays in a dry bag, and it's only for sleeping at the end of each evening. And then I have the set that I wore the day before, and I put it on. Merino wool doesn't smell. It doesn't stink. It doesn't build up an odor. So you can wear it for 8 days, and trust me,
Are you sure about that?
I have worn the same pair for 8 days, and it's not too bad. I stink, but the wool, the clothing doesn't. Stuff like a rain jacket, again, you can get one for $50. You can get one for, without exaggerating, for $850. Get what you need. Hats, make sure you got a hat, but is it a trucker's hat that you've already got? That's fine. Or I'm not a fan of these kind of ultralight kind of hiking material hats. They all kind of sit a bit weird. Sunglasses, you're going to need those. Gloves, when I say gloves, I don't mean gardening gloves like my friend here. I'm talking more about for the cold. I've just got a lightweight pair of Columbias that I have taken to colder climates before, and every now and then I do find a use for, or a time where I do want to put them on for a little while. I've written down something here that I do not take, and I specifically wrote it down because I expect everyone to think that you would take it. I do not take a belt. I deliberately do not wear or take a belt, because every encounter I've ever had with a belt and a hiking pack ends up with some kind of chafing, some kind of bruising, or significantly uncomfortable experience with the buckle or something. So I make sure that my pants fit me very well, and then I just put the belt of the waistband of the pack straight around that, and I'm fine.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Again, all that stuff is dry bagged, sometimes individually. I keep dirty clothes separate on a trip, so if for some reason I was to get something muddy or particularly sweaty or whatever, I would keep that well away from my dry bag of clean clothes or sleeping clothes, even to the point where I might even tie it on the back of my pack.
Drag it along the ground.
Try and lure some predators out. I've I've got an other column here, Craig, which has things like, no, we're getting towards, I think that's my last page. Everyone says, thank goodness for that. Hiking poles, which I've already spoke about for the tent. I carry them anyway, so it's no big deal. Some people swear by them, some people can't stand them, some people don't know where they stand. I've written down day pack just because, like, for example, this trip that we're doing is going to require some side trips where we'll probably dump our big packs to then summit some of these mountains, and it's just good to be able to then take your hydration bladder, stick it in a smaller pack, and take that up with your camera gear or something. Water purification system. We used to use, the first thing I could remember using was, we used to have a platypus system where we would filter the water through a coal filter, and then we would use a SteriPen to neutralize all of the bacteria. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that system. It works. It worked for us for years. More recently, though, we discovered a product called the Grail, Grayl, and I've never looked back since I've started using that. I've shown it to a few mates on the trail, and they've got hooked and they've gone and got their own. Grail is just, they sent me this new product that they just launched on Kickstarter called the GeoPress, and all the little tiny things that slightly irritated me with the Grail have been addressed, and it's kick-ass, like it's a beast. And so that'll be its maiden voyage on this trip as well. And then the only other thing I wrote there, Craig, was you already said that you take a trash bag, a garbage bag, but sometimes I carry that Cedar Summit. It's specifically a trash bag.
That's what I meant.
Kind of like a dry bag. Oh, right. I thought you meant an actual plastic bag.
No, it's like up in the dry bag section though.
Yeah. And what I like about that is I have actually used it as a dry bag. It's really quite an effective dry bag. But it has tie points on the side as well. So you can tie it to the outside of your pack, roll the top over. You have a plastic liner in it, plastic bag liner. And you can just keep all of that nasty stuff well away from the inside of your pack. And in our case, we'll be traveling for 6 days. So 6 days worth of bits and pieces of rubbish, food scraps and stuff like that is not the sort of thing you want to be jamming into a cheap, just a shopping bag and shoving it in your pack, because it's going to stink stuff out, and eventually, if it leaks or something, you've got a whole world of pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got one that was too big. That's my problem. I've got to get a smaller size.
The trash bag? Yeah, I feel the same. I didn't really know.
It'd be good to have a small one of them, and I think I got like something made me think I needed a big one. And so.
Exactly. I was the same. I'm sure I've got the biggest size they've got, thinking, I definitely...
Which is good when we go camping, with the four drives and stuff, just to chuck stuff in there.
But there's no need for you, because most of the stuff is just the outer packaging of dry bags or muesli bars or granola bars.
When we're hiking, yeah.
So you can squash all that down. Yeah, that's a good point. But I guess a budget option, because that was not the cheapest thing in the world, a budget option of that would be a cheap dry bag with the plastic bag inside it.
Yep.
And just hook that on the outside of your pack. I have, even prior to that, I used to take just one of those real heavy duty garbage bags. The ones you buy that are specifically for kind of garden waste. They're super thick. I just used to take one of those and then tie a knot in it and hang it on the back of the pack. That works as well. But that's it. You got anything else to throw in there?
Mate, if we're wrapping up, I've got not much else in the pack. I've got a few things to say about food. Well, so I still carry a SteriPen. That's my main thing. I don't have a Grail at the moment.
A SteriPen, just for you guys who don't know, it's an ultraviolet light, little tiny light. Looks like a little lightsaber. And when you switch it on, the ultraviolet light wand, you kind of stir your water with it, and it shines onto all the bacteria, and it actually, what's the word for it, Craig?
Sterilizes
them.
the bacteria.
Yeah, but the use of that word sterilize, I'm not saying from an antibacterial point. What I'm saying is actually makes them sterile, so they cannot reproduce in your gut.
It's crazy, eh?
It doesn't kill the bacteria.
You still drink it.
You still drink it, but it cannot reproduce. And it's effective. We have drunk dirty, filthy water that cows have,
which you should put through a filter first.
Put it through a filter first.
And then sterilize. But, yeah, so I think the SteriPen, if you can just grab some creek water and a SteriPen, it works really well. And I've got a little USB version, which is very small and very light, and it takes 45 seconds for half a litre, and I think it's very effective. Good option. The Grail is cool as heck. I love it.
Yeah, and I think the price-wise, you're looking at the Grail's probably
maybe cheaper,
about a third of the price of SteriPen.
Probably is,
and more robust.
If you're looking for a budget option, you've got your pills, your tablets that can just chuck in a bit of creek water, and it'll. You got to wait though. You got to wait a couple of hours, isn't it? Or an hour?
I think 20 minutes is the minimum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the longer the better. And I've never used them because I've just never really wanted. I never really enjoyed the thought of consuming that the tablet water. Apparently, it's got not a very nice taste, and so that's why people sort of chuck electrolytes in there or something just to mask it. And super duper budget option is bleach.
Oh, really?
Unscented,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just
you've said that.
Straight bleach, couple of drops.
Doesn't sound right.
It doesn't feel right. Research it before you. Don't listen to me. And
don't listen to me.
But,
actually,
it's a fact. Like, you can actually consume bleach without any ill effect in very, very small amounts. I'm talking drops.
So that's a sort of personal look. We've given away all my secrets here.
Yeah, there's nothing else there I can tell you about what I carry.
Of what I carry in my pack. If you're on a strict budget, I would say just beg, borrow, and steal. Do whatever you have to get started. You know.
Gumtree,
Trading Post, Marketplace.
Well, they're all going to go by different names in different countries.
Craigslist, really good name.
Well, what we're talking about is these secondhand kind of local websites where you can, or even, Facebook Marketplace, doesn't matter where you are now, it's called the same thing.
Yeah.
People get rid of hiking gear.
They do.
All the time.
We've bought heaps of stuff secondhand.
We both have had some big wins. I got a pair of hiking poles. I didn't even need them, but they were just around the corner from my place, and I thought these will be great when I take some new people out.
Yeah.
They were never been used. They still had the plastic bit joining them together, all tied up. $10.
Yeah, shit.
Cannot go wrong. And I thought for $10 I'll give them to, if someone comes with me that doesn't have poles, I'll say, there you go, borrow them for the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's always handy to have spare stuff. But I've seen packs pop up where I've thought, actually, that's a pretty good brand, and that's about 25% of the price, because somebody's gone out hiking once and realised that you actually need some level of fitness and just throws it in.
Yeah.
Or I think another thing, and that's probably a bit critical, but I think another thing that happens is people go on these organised hikes. So they get invited to an event or something, and they'll hike with a walking company or something,
mm-hmm.
and they'll walk for 4 or 5 days. and then they'll never hike again. Like, they have a great experience, but they've got no need for that gear.
Yeah.
And that stuff pops up all the time. You just got to be on the pulse.
Hey, look, mate, since we went towards talking to, I don't know if it is beginners, because you can have experience with hiking but still be on a budget. I mean, if we're talking to people that had a little bit of a budget today, because that was one of our queries. But if you are a beginner or something, I really wanted to say that if you're going to get some gear and go a significant distance from your vehicle, maybe stay overnight or something like that, you need to be prepared on lots of levels, not just gear. So I wrote that down on my notes here, because if we're going to talk about this, I know we've talked about it in other podcasts, but I think it's pretty important to just disclaim that this isn't all you need to do before you begin on a budget approach to hiking.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. I think it's very easy to listen to this episode. Go back and listen to, from memory, it was episode 2 called Hiking Fitness.
Oh, yeah.
Tick that box.
Yep.
Make sure you got that under control. There was another episode we did for National Preparedness Week in the States, which we covered a lot of survival stuff. We also covered a lot of basic safety stuff.
Yeah.
In great detail, from survival kits to first aid kits to a lot of the stuff we've spoken about. So go and listen to old episodes and get the detail, and then put those 2 episodes together with this third one. Yeah. And I think you'd be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I thought I should say, I don't know if we got to say that stuff.
Because there's something we didn't mention was maps, compasses, or GPS. And I think it's because I just take it for granted. But
actually, that's so good. Yeah.
You do need to make sure that you are carrying a paper map, and I'd take a paper map now, even when I've got my GPS, because I've had it go flat, and you've had one break, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
So you just can't be so relaxed about stuff that you're not taking into consideration. Worst case.
Yeah.
Wow, way to finish on a downer.
No, well, look, ultimately, if you can get the bare essentials together, I think that's what we're talking about. Sometimes you should, go test the waters on a 222, and should naturally become obvious where, your upgrades need to be.
Keep it short, keep it close to home, close to the vehicle, and just gradually expand out. Leverage friends who are into it or have experience. Try and tag along with people who are not so far. Well, this is a tough one. Some people take pride in showing other people how experienced they are, and their ego gets in the way, and it's not an enjoyable situation. But without getting too far off track, find people that you think are going to actually mentor you and take you on that journey and kind of ease you into it, rather than people that just want to show you how much of a hero they are on the trail.
Hike or die made me do it. Now get out there, you guys.
Hike or try.
Hike or try. Is that what I said?
No, you didn't. Hike or cry.
Hike or cry made me do it. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, it was a good chance to just show you guys what we do use, and
I'm going to apologise now. I can't believe that if anyone's still listening, I find it hard to believe. It would blow my mind if someone said they heard this last bit. But the reason of going into such detail here is that I don't think we'll ever do this again. We won't need to do this again. That's it. When people say to me in the future, forevermore, hey, Tom, what sort of stuff do you pack? I will say, go to episode 12 called What's in the Pack and listen to it for yourself over approximately 6 or 7 days.
Yeah, when you said, I knew this was going to be a long one, mate.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the ins
pinnacle.
And outs. The pinnacle, the ins and outs of what we have been working on for a long, long time. And yeah, I'm really glad that we can share this with you guys. If you get something out of it, I think you might, get very little out of it. If you're coming at this from
if you're asleep, it's hard to get anything out of it.
From some experience, you're going to go, well,
Well, that's
I knew all
exactly
that.
right. If you're an experienced hiker, you're going to say, well, this has been a complete waste of my time. You just listed off gear that I've already got.
I hope that some of you will rewind and play some of this bits again and listen carefully to some of the sections and maybe choose some upgrades to your gear.
There's always, every person I talk to or go hiking with, I always see a way that they do something, a way that they pack something, or one little item. I remember went hiking one time and it was Damo pulled out a little mini pack of Pringles, and I thought that's an odd thing to bring. And we were sitting in our hammocks at the end of a big day of hiking, and he pulled out this little packet of Pringles, a mini tube. Anyway, he said, "Oh, do you want some?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll just have one or two." And the saltiness and the crispness and the flavour.
You're in love with the chips.
Absolutely. Well, it just, man, it was just, and I started carrying it myself after that, because that just became something I would never, ever, ever have thought of taking. But it goes back to that kind of Jelly Belly comment.
Sense.
It's just something at the end of the day that's just epic.
Yeah. And so please send us any things that you think we should have in our pack that we don't have at the moment.
Yeah, help us out. Come on.
If you think you can challenge us to change or upgrade or look at it differently, please let us know.
We're going to get 200 messages about better stoves, I guarantee.
Yeah, you guys ain't tried this.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think we could upset a few people with like, let's go. Maybe this is not the way you would do it, but
if it starts a conversation, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, I've had enough. I'm going to go to bed soon.
Sorry if we sound a bit tired.
We are. It's the time. It's 25 minutes to 1 a.m. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. Thank you very much for continuing to support us on this quest to bring you information. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know if this has been of some use to you. If you got anything to add, Craig?
No, mate. No.
Good. Thank you and goodbye. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about HikeordieTV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by Hikeordie.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.